Hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm tuning in today from my little healing yurt space that I have absolutely fallen in love with. So I've had some really dynamic shamanic sessions in here recently. And I'm really thankful for the experiences coming through and the courage that I'm seeing in people. Shamanic stuff doesn't suit everyone. But for those that it does, it seems to be a really profound remembering of language and ritual and really that relationship with spirit and nature. And it seems to complement a lot of other healing modalities. So I don't only just do shamanic medicine because I find that there's other facets to it that I search for in other modalities and other skills that I have. What I really wanted to talk about today is the importance of communication, and not just communicating with others, communication with the self, communication with source and with spirit, communication with our energetic bodies, our etheric fields, the deeper parts of ourselves, and how that emanates out into all our relationships in our life. So relationships are so very important. They are such a big part of our lives. And the way that we speak to the parts of us that we love is really important. Just the same as if we're very careful and conscious about the way we speak to others, then we have to do that for ourselves too. So one of the biggest themes that I talk about in my work is boundaries. And boundaries is so incredibly powerful and life-changing when we understand the framework that it lays down for us in our relationships. So as I've talked about before, communication, like anything else, is a skill. It's not something that some people are good at and some people are terrible at. It's a skill like any others. The more you practice it, the more you get into it, the more you try new things, the more that you dedicate to it, the better you get at this skill state. So there is so much information about boundaries and communication out there if you know where to look, or if you're willing to look. If you can change the way that you communicate with yourself, I think this lays down an awesome framework for changing many different areas in your life. So be very aware of the stories and the unconscious, repetitive, disempowering stories that come through. Anything that I hear over and over in my own mind, I quickly gain a lot of curiosity for really quickly. And I ask very specific questions to unlock what's happening in any unconscious or subconscious programs. So if I am consciously and creating the language that I speak to myself, I feel like I can change different realms of my experience. I feel like I can heal different parts of me. But then being aware of those repetitive unconscious programs is a big part of it too. And understanding where they come from. So a lot of the questions I use are, is this mine? Sometimes it's not. A lot of the times it's not, actually. And if so, maybe where did I get it from, or how does it serve me? And even things that are disempowering sometimes serve us, but it's a very specific question to use to go further. I often ask, do my behaviors and my actions reflect my true beliefs? I love the question, what would I prefer to be feeling right now? What would I prefer to be telling myself? What would I prefer to get out of this situation? which takes me away from the attachment of how sticky or dark or alluring that program may be, and invites in a different reality. So if I notice anger about something, say I'm triggered by a situation, whether it's a big trigger or not, and I'm going down the angry path, which I know usually leads to the resentment path for me pretty quickly, and I'm attaching to the stories and I'm having it go over and over in my head. If I know that something is going over and over in my head, that it needs to be addressed, I don't really let too much take up my headspace for that long anymore, unless it's something, beautifully creative that I'm trying to birth or create a program around. So if it's going over and over my head, I know I need to take action. So I try and figure out where it's come from and what the attachment is, and I ask all those questions, but mainly, what would I prefer out of this situation? What do I want? And I try and illuminate the solution and how to get there. If I avoid or repress a conversation that needs to be made or had, I know that cyclical spiral nature will come in. So when I ask myself, what would I prefer out of this situation? I find an answer. Usually it's I want understanding or peace or healing, acceptance, contentment, expression, something. And then the next step is, well, how can I get it? How can I go towards that feeling or those feelings or that outcome rather than the one that I'm heading down at the moment? And that can be a conversation with another person. It can be a conversation with myself. It might lead me into a clearing of an emotion, a clearing of a story, an ancestral trauma, a past life, a trauma in this life, who knows? But I've noticed that the courage to ask the right questions and to investigate with awareness, curiosity, and compassion is the way that a lot of unconscious programs or lockings then have room to breathe. This gives me a greater sense of control over what I'm actually communicating to myself and what my outer world is reflecting back. So a lot of people think communication is sitting down when we feel good, when we've thought about what we want to say, in a situation that doesn't trigger us or isn't uncomfortable, and it happens easily. Right? Which it totally is. But most of the time it's how to communicate when we're really angry, when we're really scared, when we're deeply triggered, when we don't have the skills, when we'd prefer to run away and avoid and repress or completely cut that person or that part of us out of our lives. That's when communication is needed. And we only get that skill set by practicing and repeating and practicing, repeating and learning. When it's hard, when we don't do it well, when we feel like we fail, this is how skill sets get developed. So what are your experiences with communication? Do you feel like you communicate well? Are there some people in your lives that you really do communicate well with, and then other that it's just terrible? And I think that's fascinating. If you'd like some resources on communication, I've got a few nice little books actually that help really well. And what do you do to create better relationships, and what are you interested in with communication? Let me know, reach out, send me a private message, comment, or just receive this video. I don't mind either way. Thank you for letting me to communicate this. I don't know if it was a good communication, but it was definitely a share and a vulnerable share. So I thank you greatly for that. And I will tune in with you guys next time. Thanks heaps. Much love. Bye.